Hello again YouTube, and I'm back with an update video, and this is the inside of the Trackstar 600 volt MPPT charge controller from Morningstar. And I'll just give you some of the layout of as I saw it when I opened it up. I've mounted it on the wall, essentially with some screws and so forth, and I got that kind of like a particle board background or background for, or a mounting for it. And on this side right here, we have the input side of the for the solar array. These are just 10 gauge wires. These wires were in here. This was wired up when I opened up the case, so they had already done this. So these are 10 gauge wires, okay, coming in from the solar array, negative and positive. This is a solar disconnect. That's all it is, solar DC disconnect. This is a breaker, a DC breaker for the battery. Will disconnect the solar side of things, and this is a breaker for the battery on the battery side. This is high voltage. This will be the high voltage side, and this will be the low voltage side. This is just a 63 amp breaker that's rated at 125 volts DC. So this is a DC breaker for the battery, and as you can see, positive and negative. It also comes with this little connector right here, and this is for the remote battery sense. Basically, this is a separate connection so that the system will know the battery voltage without the resistance that you would typically find with, coming from like this side of the battery. So this right here is just, just put some 14 gauge wires here, and this will be the remote voltage sense, battery voltage sense. This is a reset button. This is a battery temperature sensor, remote temperature sensor. Kind of helps with the charging. Just some status LEDs, negative and positive terminals. And this right here is an 8 switch dip switch settings for different options for the battery bank, or for the battery charging, and for the charge controller itself. Okay, and these are the bus bars on the battery side. Again, this entire section is considered the low voltage side, and this entire section here is considered the high voltage side. And there is actually, I took it out, but there is a separator between the high voltage side and the low voltage side. And you cannot, absolutely repeat, you cannot have the low voltage batteries low voltage wiring mingling with the high voltage wiring. So that's why there is a divider, so that that can't happen. So other than that, you just have some grounding bus bar as well. So this is essentially it, and you have some little connectors underneath here, whether it's a serial connector, Ethernet connectors, all 485 connectors, essentially the different ways you can communicate with the unit. But this is essentially it inside. It's clean. I'm going to go get some 4 gauge wiring. This looks like 4 gauge wire to me. So I'll get some 4 gauge wire, and then we'll just hook it up to the battery bank. The hooking up to the panels will come later. So, but right now I'll just hook up to the battery bank and call it good. All right. Stay tuned, YouTube. Hello again, YouTube, and as you can see, I've got it all hooked up and everything. It's right. As far as the stuff in here, I didn't, just essentially hooked up the remote voltage sensing wire and the remote temperature sensing wire. And as you can see right here, obviously there is no PV wire. I haven't run that yet, obviously, but I hooked up the ground, and my wiring, it ain't the prettiest. Obviously, it looks like a big jumbled mess, but it's really not. So there's a lot of sensor wires, and yes, I could probably run them in conduit and stuff like that, but at the point I don't really care. But it's like, hey, it works. So anyway, it's wired up, and so for right now, I'm going to just simply flip the switch. Well, not yet, because I've got to set these dip switches here to their correct settings before I flip that switch. So I'm going to leave it on for right now, and I'll come back in a second. All right, take care, YouTube. Stand by. Hello again, YouTube, and I'm back with another video here. This is an update on the installation of my TriStar MPPT 600 volt charge controller from Morningstar Corporation. And I've installed the unit and the meter itself. Can't see anything here, so yeah, there you go. And as you can see right here, it's 27.9 volts on the battery bank, and it's at night. It's not really charging, and obviously I don't have the panels, the solar array hooked up to it, just the battery side of it, the low voltage battery side. And it was a pretty decent install. The unit has been programmed, custom programmed for a 24 volt battery bank. And it wasn't bad, actually. It wasn't a bad programming effort, and the installation was pretty straightforward. You know, obviously you have to read the manual to make sure you don't miss anything. And I programmed it through with a software package that you can download from the Morningstar corporate site. And there's a web server. You can go to a web page. And there's a web server with this thing too that allow you to look at the data, look at the information over a web page. So anyway, this was a pretty decent install. It was easy. I mounted it on the wall. It's pretty solid. You know, it's not going anywhere. And the next step is to connect the solar panels to the unit. And so I'm waiting on some more wire to come in. Not a whole bunch of wire, but you know, just a little bit. Anyway, it should be pretty straightforward. Oh, okay. Now, also, if you look at my wiring right here, I know it kind of looks kind of bad from from the video standpoint, but as I stand here and look at it, it doesn't really look bad to me because I understand where everything is at and you know, and so forth. I could have run it in conduit, but I decided not to. I mean, it's, you know, it's not that big a deal for me. This is in a enclosed area, and you know, really, there's nobody else, nobody coming in this room here but me. But anyway, also for the folks out there that have asked questions as far as, you know, how is my battery bank doing, my nickel iron batteries, and whether or not I would recommend these nickel iron batteries after I've used them for a while. And the answer is yes. I mean, the batteries are fine. They're doing very well. I've gone off grid so many times I've lost count. I've drained the batteries down to, you know, around less than 20% state of charge. I mean, I've lost count the number of times I've done that. The batteries are, you know, they're performing as advertised. Yes, I do have to put water in them if I, you know, drain them down too deep or, you know, charge them up and so forth. But it's no big deal. I've got, like, you know, almost 2 gallons of water right there sitting on the side. It doesn't take me that long to refill the cells with some distilled water. But anyway, the batteries are performing just as I expect them to, and yes, I would recommend them to, you know, if you want to buy them. If you want to buy some from some distributor, yes, I would definitely still recommend them. So anyway, the system itself is doing quite well. The capacitor bank is still doing as expected. My batteries run all night without stopping for a, you know, premature shut off from the Magna sign, and that's due to the capacitor bank and also the fact that I have a timer on the freezer and the refrigerator, and I've got it timed just right. I think just right for now. So, you know, I've watched it over a couple of off-grid situations, and it runs great. It just great. So, but anyway, the nickel iron batteries are good to go. This charge controller is installed and ready to accept the solar array, and I think I am good to go. All right, take care, YouTube.